That's why it took ages to train as a prophet in ancient Israel, in the school of Isaiah or whatever. You know, it wasn't just a random thing. I think there's a mistake among the general public, not among scholars, but among the general public, that prophecy was a sort of a sudden download that comes, and God, suddenly you've got to, you know, do a prophecy. I don't think it was like that. I think it's a training process, and if you read carefully, the implication is that the word in Hebrew, nabi, which is related to the same word in Arabic, implies there were training schools for these prophets in Mari, one of the great urban centres of that area, and elsewhere throughout the Middle East. So, and I still think that this faculty is therefore dormant with us all. Now, we could call it common sense, but we could call it hyper-sensitized common sense, you know? Because if you're like me and you believe the mind does have certain paranormal faculties which are just supernatural, in the sense that they're natural, but they're just, you know, extremely, you know, highly tuned. So the supernatural is the very natural. I think things like telepathy, which my cat has, and other faculties which humans have, you know, they're natural, right? Look at the studies in parapsychology, and of course they're natural, but not everybody has them, they're dormant. If you develop them, then you can you can foresee things that are going to happen. And it's no more magical than if I'm driving a car at 100 miles an hour and I see I'm coming up to a brick wall. You know, anyone in the car with the slightest brain can work out, if I don't stop, change direction, slow down, slam the brakes on, there's going to be an accident. Well, that's how I felt about Brexit ever since 2 days after the referendum, when I realised the results were not a huge mandate from the British people for this result. It was presented and spun like that in the media, but I knew from the second day, especially after my vote was returned to me under very mysterious circumstances, my vote was never counted. The envelope was sent back to me unopened. I mean, you know, how many thousands of other votes were tampered with like that? I know people all over Europe, for instance, who were never sent the ballot papers in time. So I knew it was a false result that was spun through the English-controlled media in Westminster, and I was living in Scotland. I watched in horror as the views of the Scots were ignored. So it didn't take much genius. You know, I may be reasonably intelligent, but you don't have to be that intelligent. If you're living in Scotland, you've followed Scottish politics for 7 years, you see the way their vote was completely ignored, to realise that the SNP are going to use this and break up the UK. It's just as clear as daylight. What I find so extraordinary is, why didn't the English political elite realise that and do something about it, if they wanted to save the UK? The Liberal Democrats tried, and bless them, they tried very hard. The Greens tried, but they have no say, although Caroline Lucas is a wonderful woman and she was a friend of my mother's and I salute her. But, you know, one voice, right? The Lib Dems also tried, but because there's no PR system, again, their voices are marginalised. The media likes to go for the jugular against the Liberal Democrats because they represent everything that the Daily Mail, Telegraph, extreme right type media hate. They're against racism, they're against, you know, classism, they're against sexism, you know, everything the Lib Dems stand for, those kind of racist, xenophobic, gutter press outlets stand for. And so they pump out venom against the Liberal Democrats. And poor old Jo Swinson, who's a very nice woman, I'm very sure, although she was compromised by her former association with the Tory party when she was in coalition, and she wasn't able to explain that sufficiently enough to the Scots, who are so disgusted with the Tory government and its hegemony on British politics that was a fatal, you know, a toxic thing, and I knew that. This is why I didn't vote for Jo Swinson as leader of the Liberal Democrat Party. I knew she was going to lose her seat. Anyone that understands Scottish politics could have predicted that. Again, you don't have to be a seer. It helps. But I knew she was going to lose her seat, and so we are where we are. We have no effective leader. I voted for Ed Davey because I think he's a much more grounded, rational, sensible pair of hands, like the former leader was. But so the Liberal Democrats were kind of wiped out as an effective opposition, and they made the mistake of going for immediate revocation instead of working in alliance with Labour to bring about an overall push for a second referendum. There should have been a firm pact politically, and I'm sorry, I'm now talking party politics. There should have been an absolute firm pact sworn by Lib Dems, SNP, Labour, Green, Plaid, etc., to stand one person only at the last general election. And their failure to do that, which is, I blame both Jeremy Corbyn and Jo Swinson, led to this Tory takeover of England. That's all it is, it's the Tory takeover of England. And that was the last chance probably to save the Union. It's a catastrophe. I'm living through the last days of my country, the United Kingdom. I will go on fasting every Sunday until it's either saved or until it breaks up, and until Brexit is reversed and at least Scotland and hopefully Ireland rejoin the European Union. I believe eventually England and Wales will, but it's going to take a while. So the other thing that's happened this week is that the tragedy of the shooting down of the plane over Tehran, the Ukrainian airline. I feel, again, personally, like annoyed about this, unbelievably so, because I'd just been in India talking to a Ukrainian philosopher, a very intelligent, young, articulate European, philosopher, and we were just talking about Ukraine and how important it was and so on, and I was understanding something about the conflicts there, and she was explaining to the World Intellectual Forum we were meeting in Delhi how we can heal and resolve the split between Russia, the Russian Federation, and Ukraine. What can we do? We were thinking as intellectuals how to help that. And she, I think, flew with Ukrainian Airlines to Delhi. Another colleague of mine from Armenia was not able to get to Delhi because the Ukrainian Airlines wasn't willing to fly. It's as if they had a presentiment there are going to be problems. Well, so as we now know, it was a trigger-happy Iranian commander who ordered the plane to be shot down, with this killing of many people and many Canadians. As a Canadian dual citizen, I mourn for the Canadians as well as everyone else who died. Trudeau's right to have demanded, answers. I think they've now emerged, and the Iranians have admitted it. What I've said, and I maintain, is that the moral, karmic duty, responsibility of this is not solely on the head of the Iranian armed forces who tragically did this. They were nervous and skittish, expecting an American attack any time, because that's the rhetoric Trump had fueled, bigged up, and the people behind Trump. And I include Netanyahu in that. He's been talking to Trump behind the scenes for at least ever since he became president, telling him how evil Iran is. Netanyahu has a kind of psychological, it is a form of madness actually, that has made him hate Iran. Now, it's ironic, his father was a great historian, Netanyahu Sr., who wrote a book on the origins of the Inquisition in Spain. I have a copy in my library here. I don't agree with all his findings. It was, it's a partial study, but it was interesting. And the joke that Netanyahu doesn't understand is that whilst the Catholic monarchy of Spain and Portugal were persecuting Jews and Marranos who converted from Judaism to Christianity to save their lives, They were still being hunted by the Inquisition. You know, they weren't Christian enough, so we'll burn you. Meanwhile, in Iran, Jews were given a home and tolerated. And in the Ottoman Empire, they were given a home. They were allowed to go and live in Safat and set up their Isaac Luria schools. You know, the Muslims loved the Jews and still do deep down. They're just in shock because of this horrendous anti-Islamic thing that got into the genes of Judaism, which it didn't ever belong in there. You know, Maimonides, the great intellectuals of Cordoba, the Jewish thinkers like Maimonides and others, they were happy working with their Muslim colleagues. They learned Arabic, they spoke Hebrew together. They were comparing and contrasting, say, prophecy in the Bible with prophecy in the Quran. Moses Maimonides, who wrote about prophecy, just as I've been talking about, you know, he could be sitting here and we'd have a chat about it because he understood what I'm talking about, future intelligence. There are degrees and levels of prophetic insight, right? And it's a sliding scale, you know, everyone's got it. It's a natural faculty. Now, obviously, someone like Moses or Muhammad or Jesus or these heavyweights, Isaiah, you know, they have it in an nth degree, but it's not such that it should make us all feel diminished and you know, that we have no count, that we don't count, and that therefore the priests of those prophets can come and slaughter us all. That was the point of Nicholas Bonneville during the French Revolution, when he wrote a very important book called L'Esprit des Religions, modelled on Montesquieu, who wrote L'Esprit des Lois, great French text on the need for the separation of powers, political democracy, opposing tyranny and so on, which inspired the American Revolution and the French Revolution. I prefer to call them evolutions. Let's not stress the violence that unfortunately, you know, took part. It was more an evolution of the mind that led to these political transformations. Well, Nicholas Bonneville, who was a Druid and a scholar and a sage, wrote L'Esprit des Religions, which I'm working on for my Encyclopedia of Druid Studies at the moment, because he said that we have to evolve to a place where truth becomes the dominant modality of discourse in society. He visioned a future confederation of the world, like my colleagues on the World Intellectual Forum. There would one day be a world where there'd be a confederation of universal peace, which would be premised on truth, because you can't have such a thing without truth. And war would become outmoded as a means of solving disputes. I'm reading a history of India by the great French scholar Alain Danielou. Love this man, he's dead now, great French Indian expert. He wrote on Shiva and Dionysus and many things, on Tantra and so on. He wrote this history of India, and if you read the narrative, it is scandalous what's happened in India. Waves of invasions, fights, battles, wars, where massacring everybody was the norm. You know, you didn't just conquer the city, you massacred everyone, like horrendously. And they were doing it both Hindus to Hindus, Muslims to Hindus, Hindus to Muslims. You know, it was like everyone was doing it. And that's what we have to stop. That's what Nicholas Bonneville was saying. Hang on guys, let's have a world of federated nations whereby we make pacts for peace, was what he was saying. His voice was drowned out by the extreme French revolutionaries like Robespierre, who hated him, and Marat and others, who said the guy was, you know, dangerous because he was a pacifist. He wanted a proper French evolutionary process, and he saw the revolution as a spiritual process. Like his friend, the unknown philosopher, Louis-Claude de Saint-Martin, who was his friend and buddy, who was providing the metaphysics for this whole thing. Those are the kind of people that I am researching and respecting. And that's why I think it's so sad on a metaphysical plane that the UK is A, breaking up, and B, it's breaking up because of lies. It hasn't elevated its body politic to the level of truth enough. There are individual people of great integrity in the UK, and many of them have been my friends. I love UK people and politicians I've known. I've mentioned Lord Ennals, but I've known a lot of lords and MPs in my time. And John Smith, who I honoured, he was a man of great integrity. But the trouble is they've become far fewer and fewer and far between. I greatly respect the Labour MP for Exeter, I think he's called Ben Bradshaw, who's recently come out and said that he is convinced Scotland will secede from the UK 100% certainty. I've been saying that for 3 years, if Brexit goes ahead. Ben Bradshaw said it yesterday, and finally people are waking up. It turns out he's married to a chap who is Scottish, and all his family voted SNP because they're so fed up with the shenanigans of the Tories. And that's the mood of Scotland. That's the 70,000 people marching yesterday in Glasgow. Bless them. Some say it was more like 100,000. I would have been there if I'd have been in Scotland. Because it's enough is enough is enough. Boris Johnson, the guy's an eccentric imbecile without a moral compass fit to run a chippy, let alone a nation. He should be given some academic chair of whatever and just put out to grass. And the sooner the Tory party were to get rid of him, the better. But unfortunately they won't, because, he's such a fake that in a fake system you can use people like that to win. Well, winning, in this case means the breakup of the country, and I don't think it's a price worth paying. So I have one last strategy up my sleeve, a sort of emergency, save the country strategy. I'm going to make a phone call, therefore, and try and pull it off. You need to say a prayer and wish me well here, because it's interesting. We're living in perilous times, folks. Right, so I'm going to ring. I've not spoken to him before, but we'll see. He's a member of the royal family. I spoke to the Queen recently. Bear with me. Hello. Yes, greetings. Hi. Is that Kensington Palace? Yes, it's Dr. Thomas Daffern. That's right. I pre-booked the call. Yeah. Hope I'm on time here. Okay, you're expecting me. Thank you so much. Yeah, do put me through. Yes, please. Thank you. Hello. Greetings. Is that Prince Harry, is it? Yeah, well, greetings. Hello, sir. Yes, it's Dr. Thomas Daffern here. Yes. We've not met, sadly. Yeah. So look, firstly, let me just, I know it's a bit late, but let me congratulate you on your marriage. You seem to have found an amazing wife. I admire her spirit. So congratulations on that. Yeah. Yes, I have followed the news, actually. I'm aware that there have been a few developments on this front. Yeah. Well, I totally understand. I mean, I agree that the younger generation has to either be heard now, or it's going to have to do its own thing, isn't it? I admire your spirit. I hope you have the courage to do it. Yeah. And as for Canada, I think that's a brilliant thing. You see, I'm part Canadian. Yeah. And I think I saw a poll that 61% of Canadians think you should be Governor General of Canada. Yeah, it might bring in too many duties, you see. Yeah. Although, actually, it's more like, you can do what you want with it, really. I mean, it's not. I don't think it'd be too onerous. You could still do all the other stuff you want to do. Yeah, all the charitable work you're doing in Africa and things. Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, what do I want to talk about? Okay. Have you ever heard of my work? Do you know anything about me? Oh, right. You've heard something through the grapevine via your dad. Yeah, I have. Yeah. I met your dad. I know him a little bit. I think he probably knows of my work a bit. We're on the same wavelength in respects of our interest in religions, spiritualities, defender of the faiths and all that. Yeah. No, I have great time for Charles. I think he's a great man. And I'm looking forward to when he finally becomes king, yes. Okay, right. And so are you, yes. Well, look, actually, Harry, that's why I'm calling, actually. Okay, so let me just come out with it and say it. Because, look, I know you're meeting the Queen tomorrow. I mean, it's not a public secret. I mean, it's a fact, right? Not private. So I want to make a suggestion when you meet the Queen, right? Because there's so much hanging on all this. I don't know if you're a clever man, right? You know what's going on here. So look, I need to just say to you, I'm one of those people that is utterly and totally appalled at the direction the country's taking. Yeah, you are too. Yes. Well, look, anyone with any senses, it's. I mean, what is going on with our country? We used to love our country, and we thought we were good people. Suddenly, we seem to have become a nation of racists, xenophobes, who hate everything. Yeah. It's a nightmare, and I know. Yeah, and I thought it was so good that you did that thing. The first thing you did when you got back from Canada was go and help give out food at the Grenfell Towers, victim supporters. I mean, your mum was compassion walking. I used to love your mother. She was an amazing woman, and that's another thing I'm so sad about is. How she died. I think if she'd not died, none of this would be happening. She was such a good influence. Yeah, I'm okay. I do run a sort of, counselling for couples type thing. I think I could have got them to fall back in love with each other, but unfortunately, we never had the conversation. She was an amazing woman. And very psychic, I believe, and so is your father. Okay, and you're interested in all that kind of stuff too, a little bit, yeah. Well, don't worry, your secrets are safe with me. Anyway, look, Harry. The state of the country is what I'm calling about. So I should introduce myself. I'm a philosopher, a peace thinker, and a writer. I've written about 40 books. Historian, yeah, I'm an academic historian as well, yeah. Modern intellectual world history is my thing, yeah. But for that I had to study the history of the entire world from the Stone Age up. You liked history too? You dropped art history at A-level. Why did you do that, Harry? That was a bit... And you only got 2 A-levels, for God's sake. If you'd have had me as... Did you not do RE at A-level then? Why did that, and you were at Eton, why did they let you get away with that? I would have made sure you did an RS, A-level. Because philosophy is so interesting, you know that now. By the way, can I just say, your marriage was so moving to the whole nation, I want to congratulate you. And especially that amazing bishop you brought from America, that was your wife's idea, wasn't it, Megan? Yeah. I love that bishop, his amazing sermon on love. I think that was one of those moments when everyone's hair stood up on end. Like during your mother's tragic funeral in Westminster Abbey. Yeah. So thank you, for bringing that amazing bishop from the Episcopalian Church, which I know and love well. Yeah, have you been to Grace Cathedral in San Francisco? That's the headquarters of it in California. Well, do go, if you're ever in San Francisco, and also in New York, the Cathedral of St John the Divine, it's called. That's the mothership of the entire Anglican Communion, or Episcopalian. It's amazing. Yeah, if you get a chance, just, pop in with Megan. I'll let you into a secret, actually. It's the mothership of the entire Anglican Communion. Yeah. Yeah, the Episcopalian Church, yeah, where that bishop came from. Yeah, but under the high altar at the Cathedral of St John the Divine, there's a theatre. It's a full underground theatre in the crypt, which seats like 1,000 people. And you like the theatre too, yes. Yeah, the whole thing is like a play, isn't it? The whole thing is theatre. I was studying for the stage when I was young. I used to do Shakespeare. Yeah, I'm working on some new plays, actually. Yeah, I've been a bit busy, but I've written a couple. In fact, I'd love it to be performed in that underground theatre. Can you, if you get there in New York, could you have a word with the Dean of Cathedral St John the Divine and see if we could put on a play. I've got a play about the end of the world. I think it would go well under there. Yeah, it has a happy ending. That's the whole point of the play. See, it's a medieval mystery drama that ends happily. Yeah. Yes. Okay, she wants your attention. Okay, look, I'll try and be quick then. Okay. So look, when you meet the Queen tomorrow, now I don't know how to say this politely, I'm just going to say it as it is. You have to tell her to abdicate, Harry. There's no other way to stop Brexit. She has to abdicate. You have to put your foot down and say, look, ma'am, it's not just I'm leaving the firm. It's the firm is destroying my country. Explain to the Queen that her lack of ability to stand up to Brexit is now going to destroy the United Kingdom. Yeah, the Scots are so annoyed that their views have not been listened to, and the people of Northern Ireland, they're leaving the country. Just tell the Queen that. Explain it to her. I don't think anyone has said this. Nobody in her Privy Council, nobody in her little bunch of people, none of the Prime Ministers have got the nerve to tell her. You do, my friend. Explain to her, look, ma'am, because of your inability to stand up against the xenophobes, the racists, the people that have pushed for Brexit, and of course they're the people that have been making life hell for your wife just because she's a woman of great beauty and, you know, looks like an Egyptian goddess, for God's sake. Yeah, I mean, well, you love Africa, you know, so do I, right? It's named after Aphrodite. It's the land of beauty and the hot sun, yeah. Well, these complete racist idiots think that anyone who's, you know, been in the sun a bit is somehow evil and, oh God. Anyway, look, those same people have been doing Brexit, right? Yeah, they're all mad. I'm sorry, they're mad. You know that. Yeah, the people behind them. I know, and that's why you're leaving, yeah. But before you go, Harry, do this one last little favour, because if you don't, if the Queen doesn't abdicate and resign, and you can ask her tomorrow, and Brexit goes through on the end of January, then that's it, curtains, end of UK. If you can persuade her to step down, this is what I'm proposing, right? Ask her to step down, like next week, like seriously, to make a speech saying she's doing it to safeguard the Union. Yeah, it'll go down well among anyone that's got a brain, and that's still an awful lot of people. Yeah, the majority of people voted against Brexit in the referendum, and the majority of people voted against the Conservative Party and their Brexit policies at this last general election. You know, look at the figures. Yeah, the vast majority of people, and the other people are just like dormant. Their intellect is still awaiting activation, yeah? No, of course the majority of people of Britain are great, wonderful people. But they need to be led. And that's what I'm asking you to do. You bear a very important name. Harry, was the name of many of our greatest kings. Henry V, Henry VIII, you know. These were not fools. These people said if something was, you know, staring them in the face, they would call it. Yeah, that's what I'm asking you to do, Harry. Yeah, you need to call this one, and you need to say to your mum, you've been mixing with the wrong people. You've been mixing with a bunch of racists. You've got to stop Brexit, and the only way to do that is you've got to step down, mum, and you've got to make my dad the king. Charles is a very clever man. Yeah, give him my best wishes. You see, if he becomes king, it would be on condition, and he has to say this to the Privy Council, that we stop Brexit, because otherwise I haven't got a kingdom. I don't want to be king. That's the end of the monarchy. Like, just forget it. We're off. We'll all go to Canada. Tell your dad to say that, right? The whole lot. You know, we don't deserve to have a monarchy if we're just a bunch of little petty warring, Brexiteering, you know, idiots that are run by the corporate sector and the arms trade. I mean, what kind of a nation is that worth having a monarchy for? No, of course, it's ridiculous. So look, just say to your dad, but I wouldn't tell your dad you're going to do this because he might talk you out of it. Just go and do it when you see the Queen tomorrow. Your dad will be there. Drop it as a bombshell, right? Meghan will be there. She can hold your hand. and just say, this is how it's got to be. Mum, grandmum, you've got to resign, and make a speech saying why. Don't go quietly into the night. Say, because you're horrified at racism against my grandson and all that is implied, Brexit, blah, blah. Then appoint, hand the baton over to Charles. Charles says, I will become king only on condition we have a second referendum. And the terms are written so that every part of the UK has to vote in favour of Brexit for it to stand. That's what a proper king would do. I mean, for God's sake, a king doesn't sit there when his country's falling apart. I mean, he takes steps to stop it. And quite, Charles loves the Scots. I mean, his namesake, Charles, was Scottish. I mean, nobody who in their right mind. I mean, you're the Earl of Dumbarton, aren't you, or something? You've got some Scottish title. I mean, well done, good. Yeah, I lived in Scotland for 7 years. That's why I'm speaking. Now, of course, so just get Charles on the throne. Get your grandmum to retire. She can go off and do corgis and horses. That's what she's really passionate about. She doesn't have a head for politics anymore. She hasn't thought this one through, of course not. Bless her, she's obviously gone slightly senile, I'm sorry to say, And that's why you have to just ask her to step down. And then get your dad in power and do a deal. I think once you've managed to pull all those strings, then go off and be Governor General of Canada for a while. Go on a world tour. Go. Yeah. I mean, you could do something like be ambassador to Africa from the UK and the European Union, because in the European Union we love Africa. The French have got all kinds of African ties and are trying to help the continent, as best it can. And so there's a lot of peace work to be done, Harry, over Africa, but also in the Middle East. You know that. Yeah, I'm trying to stop the war in Iran at the moment. Yeah. So look, let's talk again once you've managed to pull this off. I mean, this is just a short call, right? If you can get the Queen to step down, give her my love, tell her, the Archduke of Britain sends his love, but it's for the best, man. And she's got to listen to the younger generation. She's got to stand up to the racists who've been making all our lives hell. And most of them are not even British. They're not proper English people, I don't know. Today's a saint's day, actually, of a wonderful saint called Benedict Biscop. Yeah, he founded the library in Jarrow, where Bede wrote his History of the English People. Yeah, I'll talk about that later once we've finished. No, I've got other friends to deal with. Yeah, I've got other things to do. So, look, Harry, it's an honour to have spoken to you, right? I mean that seriously. And when you've got time, if you manage to pull this off, all the angels will be with you. Your mother is with you. The saints that guard, the wisdom libraries of the world are with you. Please live up to your name and do a Harry for the whole nation. Just tell the truth. That's all it amounts to. Yeah. And when, later when you've got time, if you want to talk about setting up a peace institute in Ottawa or helping Canada manifest its peace destiny. I mean, I'm a Canadian, right? I really work for Canadian intelligence. But they haven't sent me a check for years. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I'm joking. I work for intellectual Canadians like Michael Ignatieff and, Trudeau and all that, young Trudeau. Yeah, and the dad was quite clever too. Yeah, and Leonard Cohen. Yeah, he was a great man. He was a friend of my mum's circle in Montreal when I grew up. Yeah. I probably might have been at a party